You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Wow, we have a very strong show this week. My guest is Liang Xiaowen, who is a Chinese feminist organizer and activist. And that's a very difficult thing in today's China. Fortunately, at the moment, she is out of the country and able and willing to speak freely. But we hear so much about what's happening to feminists trying to exist and build a movement in China, and the suppression of that. We don't get to hear actually from them. This is a rare chance, and I'm so proud and pleased that we were able to get her to be a guest on this program. So that's coming right up, along with Surrealism Corner and Fighting Words and lots of other good stuff, and starting with going inside the headlines. We begin with a short item from long ago, now surfacing in the just-published memoir of prize-winning journalist Seymour Hersh. Richard Nixon's wife, Pat, went to the emergency room in 1974, shortly after the Nixons left the White House, to avoid him facing certain impeachment. She needed emergency room treatment because, she said, her husband had hit her. Since we know Nixon was given to alcoholic-fueled rages during his last days as president, and since Seymour Hersh is a reporter of the highest integrity, this story rings horribly true. Here's a revolving door statistic from the Associated Press. Nearly half the political appointees hired at the Environmental Protection Agency under Trump have industry ties. Of more than 60 EPA hires tracked by the Associated Press over the past year, about one-third worked as registered lobbyists or lawyers for chemical manufacturers, fossil fuel producers, or other EPA-regulated companies. Across the country, authorities are registering historic declines in spousal battery reporting by immigrants. A survey of hundreds of police officers, victims advocates, and prosecutors in all 50 states, released by the American Civil Liberties Union last month, found numerous reports that undocumented immigrants are now far more reluctant to call the police, to press criminal charges, and to testify against assailants. They're in terror of being deported themselves. 82% of the prosecutors surveyed said domestic abuse cases are now harder to prosecute in Texas. Houston saw a 16% drop in domestic violence reports from the Hispanic community, and police blame this on the tough new immigration enforcement law in Texas. 2 high-ranking women in the Fairfax County, Virginia Fire and Rescue Department have filed federal civil rights charges with the EEOC, claiming that the department punished them for trying to combat a long pattern of sex discrimination and harassment. In 2016, that department drew national attention after the suicide of a woman firefighter who had been bullied on a Fairfax County message board. Despite promises from the department to improve, the 2 women who filed these new charges, Kathleen Stanley and Cherie Zosh, both of them battalion chiefs, say the department has not changed. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that women comprised just 3.5% of all career firefighters as of 2017, and that's down from 5.3% in 2007. A 2008 national study of female firefighters found that most departments continued to be hostile work environments for women. Glancing abroad, with a bit of envy, we see that Spain's new Socialist Party Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez presented a cabinet with more women than at any time since Spain returned to democracy in 1978. He described his administration as being, quote, pro-gender equality, cross-generational, open to the world, but anchored in the European Union, close quote. Women will now be overseeing Spain's economy, finance, and defense departments, as well as taking up the post of deputy prime minister. And women will also head the country's judiciary, education, environment, and budget ministries. Back here, tied for the Gaffe of the Week prize are contender number 1, State Department spokeswoman Heather Nauert, who, during an answer about the state of U.S.-German relations, cited the World War II D-Day invasion by the U.S. and allies fighting Hitler's Nazi regime as an example of ongoing historic friendship with Germany. Looking back in the history books, she chirped happily, tomorrow is the anniversary of D-Day. We obviously have a very long history with and a strong relationship with the government of Germany. Contender number 2, all-time Gaffe champion Donald Trump. We now learn that a few months ago, when Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau pressed Trump on how he could possibly justify tariffs against Canada as a national security issue, Trump quipped, "Well, didn't you guys burn down the White House?" referring to the War of 1812. But the War of 1812 was a conflict between the United States and the British Empire. British, Trump, British, which at the time included parts of what's now an independent Canada. During the war, U.S. troops invaded that territory and burned down York, part of what's now Toronto. In retaliation, British troops, launched a raid into Washington and burned both the White House and the Capitol. Nobody in this administration knows anything about history. Then again, they don't know anything about what's happening right now under their very eyes, so what's history? The recent findings about Puerto Rico being an example. Puerto Ricans suffered a death toll as high as 4,600 people during last year's devastating Hurricane Maria. According to a new study by independent researchers from the Harvard School of Public Health and other institutions, residents of Puerto Rico died at a significantly higher rate post-Maria than in previous years, quite contrary to the Trump's asinine and cruel assertion that the death toll was 46 persons. During a recent meeting with FEMA, Trump completely ignored the Harvard report. This story about Puerto Rico is, like so many others that get a headline but then are dropped from attention, drowned out by the daily, inane, untrue, and destructively wrong stories and actions emanating from the White House. Yet the real people who live, breathe, and suffer in those stories continue to do so, invisible to the world. The Rohingya in Burma, Myanmar, are still in enforced exile as refugees, or, if they remain at home, they're still victims of the ongoing attempted genocide. The Nigerian girls kidnapped by Boko Haram are still being sexually enslaved or strapped into explosive vests and sent out as suicide bombers. The people of Flint, Michigan, still lack clean water. And the beat goes on. But hey, the Miss America pageant is ending the swimsuit competition, trying to become even minimally relevant again. I'll pay attention when they A, simply disband and die, or B, put all that money into a huge scholarship fund for poor women in Appalachia and in the inner cities. After 50 years, we're supposed to get excited at this publicity stunt? 50 years since the first pageant protest in Atlantic City? Well, I suppose it's a start. And the 37th state, in this case, Illinois, just ratified the Equal Rights Amendment for women. That's only 36 years after the deadline. But we do need one more, most likely Virginia or Arizona. One more. It's time for a short break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, but don't go away because coming right up is the Surrealism Corner.
listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back into the Surrealism Corner. Only one item in today's Surrealism Corner, but it's substantial. We start with last week's flap over Samantha Bee's use of the C word about Ivanka Trump. My favorite responses to the outrage over the comedian's use of the word were both by actors, and both showed real wit. Minnie Driver tweeted, quote, "That was the wrong word for Samantha Bee to have used, but mostly because Ivanka has neither the warmth nor the depth," close quote. And my friend Sally Field tweeted, quote, "I like Samantha Bee a lot, but she is flat wrong to call Ivanka a cunt. A cunt is powerful, beautiful, nurturing, and honest." Period, close quote. Etymologically speaking, Sally is close to the mark. The word currently spelled in English C-U-N-T is actually one of the oldest words in the English language. It's thought by linguistic scholars to be derived from the Indo-European word for the great goddess known as Kyunta or Kyunda, the yoni or the door to the universe, the same root that gave us the words country, kin, and kind. Related forms were the Latin cunus, Middle English kunte, Old Norse and Frisian kunta, Basque kuna, and so forth. It appears in Old English as kyn, C-Y-N, and in Middle English as kont, conte, usually spelled with a K, and it's closely related in English etymology to the words ken, as to know something, count, as in numbers and as in to matter, and the words cunning, knowledge, and conundrum, a puzzle. In her exhaustive work, The Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets, scholar Barbara G. Walker noted that other cognates are cunabula, which is a cradle, and cunina, a Roman goddess who protected children in the cradle. Our contemporary word cunning originates from kenning and ken, knowledge, to ken it, still used in Scotland. Knowledge, learning, insight, remembrance, wisdom. You can also trace the relationship with concipient or concipient, which is related to conceptive and conceiving and conception. Not to be confused with concupiscence, which means intense desire, although I bet there's a connection in there somewhere. Cuneiform, the most ancient type of writing, derives from the word kunta, which meant female genitalia in Sumerian, which was the language of ancient Iraq. And even today, kunta or kyunta is woman in several Middle Eastern and African languages. It was also spelled kuna, Q-U-N-A, which is the root of the word queen. Now, since priestesses were known to be the accountants and administrators of the Temple of Inanna in Sumeria, ancient Iraq, around 3100 BCE, when cuneiform was first used, scholars think it very likely that cuneiform was the sign of the Kyunta, who kept the books, the clay tablets, for the temple economy, and for the redistribution of wealth that evolved from communal economics of ancient mother cultures. Back in England, the Kennet, from Ken, river near the standing stones of Avebury and Stonehenge was held sacred by the Druids, and even by older local matriarchal religions was thought to be a symbol of female divinity, because life, fish, irrigation, mobility, came from the river. And the word kin, K-I-N, meant matrilineal blood relations. The way words become dirtified is actually through lack of use. So words regarded as the most unutterable ones are almost always the oldest and the least altered words in any language. The word cunt was free of all negative connotations when it was used by Chaucer, but it later fell into disuse, then virtually became unspeakable, yet remained intact, and that's the category it's remained in until today, and B decidedly used it as a pejorative. But if instead you choose to use it in a non-negative way, because you ken its real meaning, then you may, like me, delight in learning a real word that means the power of a woman. Concipitance, sometimes pronounced concipitance. Concipotence, concipitance. If you're a woman, I certainly hope that you are concipitant. If you're a man, I certainly hope you're not afraid of concipitance. Aren't words fun? Like following the tracks left from where human thought has passed through. And I ask you, what other radio program and podcast would be crazy enough to offer the etymological and political background of the word cunt? No wonder we have a surrealism corner. We have to take another short break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I will be back directly with a very exciting, in-depth interview with one of the young leaders of China's semi-underground feminist movement.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again. We've all read about the tightening of speech on feminism in China. As the Me Too movement reached China, China shut it down, literally. Weibo, which is their Facebook and has a huge population, is not allowed to use the term feminist. Feminist websites and members of Weibo and groups on Weibo completely shut down. Pressure has been put on students, where much of the grassroots activism began, to stop their activism, their complaints against professors for sexual harassment and sexual assault, to cease all such activity under threat of not graduating, under threat of expulsion, and parents become involved. The university brings them in to add to the pressure at home. In addition, there's a troll army that attacks such people online for their feminism, hewing to the government line, an interesting position for so-called trolls. So there's been general repression over feminism, and specifically over Me Too, and it is reached the point where some of the protesters and organizers have in fact been jailed. One of them, however, is currently in the United States and is able and willing to speak freely, and it is my great honor to have her on the program today. Liang Xiaowen is a Chinese feminist activist from Guangzhou. She co-founded a grassroots organization for feminists in China. After graduation, she worked as a legal project manager of a feminist activist group. To the women in China who we know listen to this podcast, we're with you. To the women in the rest of the world hearing this podcast, we read about and hear about the work that Chinese feminists are trying to do in a repressive context. But this is a rare time when we actually get to hear their own voices, or at least one of them, and it is with great delight that I welcome Liang Xiaowen. Liang Xiaowen. Xiaowen, welcome to Women's Media Center Live. It's very good to have you here.
I'm honored to be here too.
Well, you are one courageous woman. You are, of course, a Chinese feminist activist, and you began, as I understand it, with LGBT movement rights, and the co-founder of a grassroots organization for lesbian feminist women in China. So right there, my God, that's a whole lot of courage. Talk about that organization, and then I want to get on to the Me Too movement and the women's status in China and the women's movement there. But talk about where you began.
Okay. Well, that organization that I co-founded is not actually for lesbian women, but we mainly focus on women's rights. And so when I was in college, I joined this LGBT youth organization, and in that organization, I learned about women's rights because, in China, I was born and raised as the only child in my family, and equality for men and women are actually in our policy. So I grew up all my life. I never knew that women are still equal in this world, and after I joined this organization and met a group of feminist activists, I found out, women are actually suffering from inequality, and that's when I started to join feminist movement. So so I became a volunteer with a group of feminist activists. They are all my age, in their 20s, early 20s. So the first campaign that we did and I joined was occupying the men's room in 2012. In that campaign, we occupied the men's room and claimed more room for women's restroom because women are always standing in line.
Yes.
That's our first campaign, and it went viral in China.
Oh, Xiaowen, you should know that we did that here in 1968 on the way to the Miss America pageant, because we had buses taking us to there to demonstrate, and we stopped at a rest stop, and there was this huge line of women, and there was nobody waiting in front of the men's room. So we liberated the men's room, and we one woman guarded while the other woman went in. Yes, this is wonderful.
That's so cool. Yeah. We actually did learn from campaigns from other countries' feminist movement, and we added on our own ingredients, to localize it.
Of course.
Yeah. So, but after I joined that campaign, I still didn't self-identify myself as a feminist activist, because once I identify myself as a feminist, it doesn't sound really good. It sounds like I'm a man-hater, stuff like that. I don't want people to feel that I'm a man-hater. I want people to feel like I'm a people person. So, but I identify myself as a gender equality advocate. It sounds more gentle and more welcome to people.
Yes.
But then I participated in more campaigns, and I did more work. We stood on the streets doing creative performance art to attract people's attention. So we basically use our body as an installation art, because China doesn't really allow public demonstration. This is our way of getting to it.
So you do it through art, because that is allowed?
Yeah.
Aha.
Yeah. So we don't call it demonstration, but it is art. So in one campaign, the campaign was about anti-sexual harassment. A photo of me doing this art was published in a lot of websites, and a lot of people commented on this photo, saying that I was so ugly that no one will sexually harass me.
Oh, they say they say the same thing all over the world. It's as if they've read the same secret book.
Yeah, exactly. And also when I was doing a campaign about anti-domestic violence, people said like, I was so ugly, no wonder I got beat it up.
Uh-huh. Oh, they're such idiots. Yeah. They're such idiots. Go on.
And then they also accused me of being a feminist. So back then I didn't identify myself as feminist. I felt so weird because I thought everything I did was not extreme at all, was not radical. It was simply emphasizing gender equality.
Common sense.
Yeah, common sense and gender equality. But they still accused me of being a feminist. So at that point, I was so angry. I felt like I was fed up with all this personal attack. I felt enough. If everything I did, if when I was advocating for gender equality and you said I was a feminist, then maybe feminist is who I am.
Oh, good for you.
So finally I decided that, yeah, I'm a feminist. And once I did that, I felt that I was empowered. Yeah. I felt immune from all this personal attack. It's like every time a woman stand out in the public and claiming for her rights, people will attack her, like all this personal attack. But once I identify myself as a feminist, I don't care about this anymore.
That's wonderful.
So that's how I became a feminist activist.
I went the same route for what it's worth. I'm an old woman, 150,000 years old now. But at first I was nervous about using the word feminist. It sounded 19th century and old fashioned. And instead I called myself in the 60s a women's liberationist. Because you know why? Because we were imitating China. We were imitating literally, we were imitating speak bitterness meetings in creating consciousness raising. And it seemed so revolutionary, you see. And we didn't understand that we were the real revolutionaries. And so even the men of the left turned against us. And, I thought finally, well, if I'm going to be blamed for it, I might as well call myself a feminist. It's a very, it's a very, very honorable word. So there. I know that there's been a whole furor over the Me Too movement in China, and that they shut down Weibo, which is, like your Facebook. They've arrested some women a few years ago or a year or so ago.
Yes.
Tell us about that and the repression that has shut down on any demonstration about sexual harassment. First of all, there are no sexual harassment laws, are there?
There are no specific laws about sexual harassment, but there are some laws, like in employment law, in employee protection laws, something like that. There will be one specific provision saying that employers are not allowed to sexually harass women. They're employees, but no punishment, no penalty was enacted, and like the definition of sexual harassment, there is no definition about that either.
So it's not enforceable really at all. It might as well not exist. I see. And the crackdown, they say that you're all agents of the West, or you're all man-haters. How do they, and the women who were arrested, they were detained, talk about that.
So when I graduated from college, my colleagues and I co-founded this organization focusing on women's rights and anti-gender discrimination in workplace and anti-sexual harassment was our main two of our main topics. In 2015, March 8th, March 7th, 5 of my colleagues were detained because we planned to carry out an activity in 5 cities nationwide. The activity was about handing out stickers. Those stickers these stickers mainly talked about no sexual harassment, and please police officer arrest those people who sexually harass other people.
Yes.
This were all the stickers are about. But right before this activity, my colleagues were detained, and not only my colleagues, but also like 10 or 20 people were being questioned by the police officer, and yeah. So they were detained for 37 days.
37 days? Oh my God, that's I was just about to ask how many hours. Were they formally charged with anything?
No, they were never formally charged. So they were accused, they were detained in the name of causing public disorders. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Causing public disorder. Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, disorder.
So it was basically an attempt, it was harassment, it was an attempt to intimidate.
Yes, but they never found enough evidence to formally charge my colleagues. So after 37 days, my colleagues were released on bail.
I see. Is this almost totally a young people's movement and a student movement now? Or I know a couple of academics who sometimes come to international conferences and are teaching women's studies. And are there, in other words, are there any women in even relative power positions? I know that like the United States, like everywhere, China is a patriarchy, and I know that it's because of its ancient long history, it's a very old and entrenched patriarchy. But still, are there any women in positions of relative power who can be sympathetic or helpful and push from inside?
I think this is very complicated. This involves the politics within the system, within the government. And right now, as a matter of fact, like in early this year, we actually saw Women's Federation, like there is a all women national federation in China, which were supposed to care about women's well-being, and they do. They did a lot of work in rural areas, but I actually saw a document posted online by one of the provincial women's federation organization, saying that whatever they do, they have to follow the government's lead, and they don't recognize the word feminism.
I see.
Like what they do is women's rights, women's benefits, but not feminism.
I see.
I think this is somehow an ideological issue. Feminism never agrees with patriarchy, never agrees with authoritarianism. So I think this is an ideological issue.
Yes, but it's always in each country. They always think that, that it came from outside agitators. Well, if it came from outside agitators, why were there 3 armies of 2,500 women each marching for women's rights during the Boxers' Rebellion? So it's been in China a long time. What do they say when you point out, which of course they say to the rest of the world, that there's no discrimination in Chinese society, women hold up half the sky, all of that stuff because we're a communist society, it's completely equal. They come to international conferences with that line, as of course you know.
Yeah. And when like the question about if there is someone relatively in power, like a woman in power inside the system, if they can help us, I don't think this is ever what we fought for, what we fight for.
Yeah.
We don't fight for women in power to support us. I think this is like we fight for the rights that we deserve.
Oh, yes. No, I understand that. But do they? I mean, in other words, what I'm saying is that because the women's movement in every country always begins at the grassroots, eventually, sometimes there will be women in power, like in our Congress or in state legislatures, who, in fact, have gone there to open up that front deliberately, so that.
I think it's very difficult, but there are women scholars. They have been trying to do this for decades. One great example is our anti-domestic violence law, which was enacted in 2015. But those women scholars, they have been fighting for this law for 20 years, since 1979. And we finally got there, and thanks to them.
Yes.
But I don't think they were government officials. I think they are women scholars and women scholars who know a lot about domestic violence and know a lot about legislation.
Yes.
And they have connections within the system.
Right, yeah. No, I didn't necessarily mean women in politics. They're usually the last to change. They're changing here now because a record number of women are running for office, but it's taken us 200 years, and you have a many thousand-year history. We read about the fact that the Me Too movement has gone kind of underground, using code words online, like rice bunny, that when you say it out loud, it sounds like Me Too, because they've shut down all mention to Me Too. Tell us how you're getting around that.
I think it was inspired by Me Too movement in the U.S. There was one woman who stood out, saying that she was sexually harassed by her supervisor when she was pursuing her doctorate in China.
Yes.
So this open letter brought a public outrage. Two students in China wrote open letters to their alma mater.
Yes.
Asking their school to build an anti-sexual harassment mechanism.
Yes.
And these two students also appealed to the public, appealed to other students to ask them to write the same letter to their own alma mater. Yes. And I joined that movement too. I wrote a letter to my alma mater and asked my school to build this mechanism. And about 70 students joined this letter within a week.
That was to China University of Technology.
Yes, and this was in January. And apart from a school, there were in total 94 schools who joined this campaign.
Wow.
Students from 94 schools joined this campaign, and in total there are more than 8,000 students joined this campaign.
Wow, that's fantastic. What was the response?
So I was not in China. I was in the U.S. currently, so I haven't heard from the reply yet. But we did send these letters to our education ministry, and we are still waiting for the reply. As for each of the schools, they have different replies, but mainly they were vague, and and a lot of schools haven't replied yet. Some of the students I didn't connect to them directly, but I heard. This is all what I heard. Mm-hmm. I heard that some of the students were being talked to, like they haven't graduated yet.
I see.
That's why we ask participants to write letters to their alma mater, because they've already graduated, so they won't be threatened by their university.
Yeah.
But still, there are some students who join this campaign, even though they haven't graduated yet. And I did hear that their school counselors talk to them and ask them not to join.
Yes. Yeah.
But not maybe and that's what I heard. And then this was in January, and then in February, about 200 students and scholars from outside China. They're mainly students who are studying or teaching overseas.
I see.
We wrote a letter too. We wrote a letter asking the education ministry to build this mechanism that we all asked for.
Yes.
But not until April. There was something, like, I think there was a big step, something big is going on right now in China, because a lot of students heard about the whole campaign, and a lot of students are actually revealing sexual harassment cases that are going on in China.
So, yeah, people gain strength from each other, and the more there are, the easier it is for people to join, although the more the government will get alarmed.
A professor in Peking University, the top one university in China, a professor was accused of causing a student's death 20 years ago by sexually harassing her and causing her depression.
Xiaowen, what do you plan to do? You're studying here now in the States,
yes.
And then do you plan to teach here, or do you plan to go back and be active, or be active on the outside? What are your plans?
I'm still thinking about it. I plan to go to law school. I graduated from a law school in China, and I came here for a Master of Laws degree. And now I'm thinking about applying for a JD. And I always want to be a movement lawyer.
A movement, aha.
A movement lawyer, a lawyer who participates and who organizes.
Aha. And one last question. How can women in other countries be helpful and supportive without being, without playing into the hands of the authorities, who will then say, you see, you're just pawns in the hands of the West? How can women be sensitized to be supportive? What do you need from the women who are listening to this program, not only in the States, but around the world? What would be helpful?
Thank you so much for this question. I'm really touched, and I really need this. So right now, because of the censorship, people in China can never get access to Twitter or Facebook, so no one knows what's going on the outside world. Yes. And also, Feminist Voices, the top one and the most influential feminist alternative media in China, was permanently banned.
Oh.
So basically, right now, we, like, feminist activists in China don't really have a very large platform to post their ideas, anything news, and campaigns about feminist activism, because this platform was banned. So right now, what we've been doing is trying to build a bridge in China and in the U.S. We have this Twitter account, Feminist China, and also Facebook account, Free Chinese Feminists. We post about what's going on in China, the feminist movement in China, on our Twitter and Facebook account every day. We also received a lot of support from all over the world, from Spain, from Latin America, from England, a lot of places, and we collect the support. We send them back to China to post on the social media of China that we still can use, and to let people in China know that people all over the world are watching and supporting them.
Yes, yes. We want them to know that you're not alone. The whole global women's movement supports you. And this has happened, in other countries, where communication has been cut off, but somehow the women's movement has gotten through. Saudi Arabia was one. I mean, China is the big one. I mean, when women transform their lives in China, and that is half of the human species gets transformed. And so it's very important to every woman, this struggle. Say again the tweeting account and the Facebook account, the names.
The Twitter account is Feminist China, and the Facebook account is Free Chinese Feminists.
And people can write into that and express support and maybe develop a pen pal relationship with individuals, and sisterhood across national boundaries and patriarchal boundaries.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Oh, well, you are so wonderful. I wish you all the possible best. We'll stay in touch, and if I may, we'll come back to you as things develop, and if there are changes, please get in touch with us so that we can cover them.
Okay.
Because I do know we have an audience, a podcast audience in China. And so that's very exciting to me to be able to have you on the program. Shay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for this interview.
And we've got to take one last break here at Women's Media Center Live, but I'm Robin Morgan, who will be back in just a moment with some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And welcome back again to some fighting words. William Jefferson Clinton is all over the media these days, promoting his new book. And is he ever blowing it? I, for one, was livid that he apparently still does not get it. After all, I expect Rudy Giuliani to make an idiot of himself on every subject, including anything to do with women, and he just fulfilled my expectations again, daring to rank women as substantive human beings so that he could throw Stephanie Clifford, a.k.a. Stormy Daniels, under the bus while affirming his respect for women who serve on corporate boards. This from the man whose wife had to learn that he planned to divorce her from an announcement he made at a public press conference. But one would think, after almost 20 years, that someone basically as intelligent as Bill Clinton would finally have worked it out by simply shutting up and listening to Hillary. But no. In the first interview of his book tour, he was defensive, bristling, inaccurate, and even went on the offensive. All of them Donald Trump tactics, I might add, when he was asked about Monica Lewinsky in the context of today and the Me Too movement. Surely he must have known this question was coming. He backpedaled later, of course, which is also familiar practice by such men. He went to lengths to say he had apologized at the time, but then he ruined it by emphasizing how much he had suffered. The impeachment proceedings, $16 million worth of debt from lawyers, his pain, etc. All about him, the poor victim. He never spoke of shame, either that which was visited on Lewinsky or that which should be visited on him to this day. Nor did he refer to the multiple other accusations coyly renamed womanizing over his lifespan. As an aside, he said that he supports the Me Too movement. Say what? He vigorously paraded his White House policies supporting women's rights, some of which took place only under intense feminist pressure, some of which were excellent, some of which were dreadful, like his policies requiring poor single mothers to get paying jobs in order to receive welfare, thus ignoring the reality that raising kids is work. And none of which are relevant to his insatiable sexual misconduct, any more than Miramax movies are relevant to Harvey Weinstein's alleged sexual assaults. Clinton, it seems, still does not understand the full weight of what he did. For instance, had he been able to keep himself zipped, he could have campaigned with Gore once his own 8 years were up, but the Gore campaign felt compelled to decline his offer to help because of the scandal. With Clinton on the stump, and nobody can argue that he's not a brilliant campaigner, Gore would likely have won. As it is, he did win, but by numbers confused by a few hanging chads, so the Supreme Court installed Bush instead. With Gore in the White House, we would have had a very different past 2 decades. We would have had a better Supreme Court, no Iraq War, possibly a short conflict in Afghanistan, if 9/11 still had happened, and a strong policy, a really strong policy, combating climate change. And so much more. It's almost difficult to imagine. But there is no Gore legacy. And Bill Clinton's legacy includes gross White House details about his semen stains on Lewinsky's dress, our first introduction into daily news of debasing acts of the presidency, scenarios that now are commonplace. Thanks a lot, Bill. These are the responsibilities he should be shouldering and naming aloud today, but he still hasn't realized what he did to women and to the country, or if he does realize it, he sure as hell didn't share it with us. I was one of the few feminists back then who felt that the Lewinsky affair was his fault and was a clear case of sexual misconduct. Many other feminists, including dear friends like Gloria Steinem, took the position that it wasn't his fault, that it was all about consent, since Lewinsky herself had, in fact, announced to her friends that she was going to the White House, quote, bringing knee pads, close quote. My counter-argument was that whether she consented or not, the imbalance of power made consent irrelevant. She was a 20-something intern, and he was the most powerful man in the world. Since we know sexual misconduct in all its forms is about power, not sex, he was culpable. I still feel that way, and I'm still furious at him. What will it take for these men to actually get it? Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag #FightingWords. And that's it for today. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMCLive.com for the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes, and at iTunes, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. And you can check out my website and blog at robinmorgan.net and find me on Facebook and Twitter, too. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton, and our founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us, and don't forget to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.